So, welcome everyone to our food waste presentation. We're so excited to have you here. A few things before we get started and before I introduce you to our stars of the show. Um, we want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A feature at the bottom. It's located at the bottom of your screen. And that way we'll take questions, and you can even ask your questions while they're presenting and they will stop and answer them. Also, you can also use the raise your hand feature. So there's a little icon at the bottom of your screen or at the top if you have an iPad or a smartphone. It's called raise hand. So if you raise your hand, then we'll allow you to unmute yourself so that you can just ask your question in real time. So with that, I will hand it off to our star of the show, Basil Hewitt. We have Basil Hewitt here and Will Chen. So to start us off in talking about food waste, we'll go with Basil. Take it
All right.
away.
Thank you, Genesis. The Start of Show is really the food waste recycling program. And like Genesis said, we want this to be interactive. If you have any questions, just jump in and Genesis will break in, and Will or I, hopefully Will answer questions. So let's get going. All right. All right, so sanitation districts, we've been around since 1923. And our mission is to protect public health and the environment through innovative and cost-effective wastewater and solid waste management. And we've been doing, presently we manage about a fourth of LA County's trash, and we also process about 400 million gallons of sewage every day from the 78 cities we serve. And our mission has evolved over the years. Initially, yeah, I mean, it still is. The foundational goal is protect public health and the environment. And through modern sanitation, we now live 20 to 25 years longer. And so we accomplished that mission, but now we're trying to convert waste into resources. That's our mantra over the last 50 years. And so we're one of the biggest producers of recycled water that you see here in the lower left of the screen. We have over 950 sites that use our recycled water to irrigate parks, for industry, golf course, recharge aquifers. We're one of the biggest agency in terms of recharging our groundwater aquifer. We also, on our solid waste side, we also are one of the biggest producers of recycled commodities. So what comes in, we're trying to figure out, recover that commodity and recycle and reuse it. And we're one of the biggest producers of green energy. And this food waste recycling story is how we can bring our wastewater and our solid waste side together, and we create a synergy that allows us to, again, serve our member cities and agencies meeting this organics diversion requirement coming down from the state. So stepping back, LA County generates 21 million tons of waste per year, 21 million tons. Of that 21 million, about 9 million is buried in landfills. And here's an aerial shot of one of our landfills, the Shoal Canyon landfill. And of the 9 million buried in landfills, about a third of that is organic waste. And of that organic waste, in LA County alone, minimally 4,000 tons of food waste is thrown out each day. And here's a shot at our Pointed Hills material recovery facility of food waste coming in, organic material coming in. Well, what's the issue? Well, this food waste, when it's disposed of in landfill, can release methane to the environment. And methane is a greenhouse gas that is, for a long time, I thought it was 23 times more disruptive than carbon dioxide. But looking at the state's website, it's over 50 times more disruptive than carbon monoxide as a greenhouse gas. And food waste in itself generates about 6 to 8% of the methane in our atmosphere. So California, being a leader in environmental regulation, is out front in terms of climate change initiatives. So they passed two laws, AB 1826, that requires commercial organics recycling. And a couple of years ago, it was any company that produced 4 cubic yards per week of organic material. But because we weren't meeting the state's goal, they lowered that number to 2 cubic yards per week. So if you're producing 2 cubic yards per week of organic waste, you have to have a mandatory organics recycling program. The second law, SB 1383, requires a 50% reduction in landfill organic waste by 2020 and 75% reduction of landfill organic by 2025. Genesis, up here, there seems to be a question. I'll take a question right now.
Yeah, what did you mean by commodity?
Commodities, plastic, cardboard, glass, anything that we want to divert or recycle as much as possible. So we'll, at our Point of Hills MRF, we have the capability of pulling out cardboard, plastic, paper, baling it up, and selling it to folks that will recycle it, reuse it.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so SB 1383 was passed a couple of years ago, and it's going to require cities in California, jurisdiction in California, to divert food waste, organic waste from landfill. And each city, each jurisdiction should have a program in place to by January of next year. So we're less than 11 months away where the state is expecting us to have in place organics food waste diversion program. So the districts are uniquely situated to help our cities. Where most of the cities, 78 of the 88 cities sit on our board of directors, to help the cities meet this organics or diversion requirement, diverting from landfill. We have a solid waste site. This is our Point of Hills Material Recovery Facility. It's the foundation of our solid waste management. So we have a place where we can collect, or the food waste can be brought in. And then SB California is for food waste. We want to keep it out of landfill, and if it can't be reused in terms of if it's food waste that could still be donated to food shelters, or if it can't be donated to food shelter, then the state wants it either to go to anaerobic digesters or composting. And we have a lot of anaerobic digesters. We have like 24 anaerobic digesters at our largest wastewater treatment plant in Carson. So bringing those two sides of our agency together allows us to provide this service at a pretty low cost. So let's look at our food waste recycling program. It has several steps. The first step is unprocessed food waste comes into our Point of Hills MRF. And that's your food waste from your grocery store, your restaurant. And we want that food waste to be as pure with food waste as much as possible. We want 90% or higher food waste in that waste stream. We take that food waste, we'll process it into a slurry at our Point of Hills MRF. Then we take it to our joint plant in Carson, put it in the digesters. We generate biogas from it that we reuse. And then what's left over from the digester, then we turn that into fertilizer and compost. So there are really two entry points into our system. You can bring source separated food waste, or you could bring slurry directly to our anaerobic digester. So let me step you through each step. So first, source separated food waste is collected. Like this, you're looking at tomatoes or vegetables from a local grocery store in a bin. Then your hauler will bring it to our Point of Hills MRF. So they will drive up to the scale. They pay about $70 per ton for the food waste. But if you enter into a contract with us, we could even lower that amount $5-10. And you see a good shot of some of the source separated food waste that comes to our Point of Hills MRF, Point of Hills Material Recovery Facility. And let's take a look inside the Material Recovery Facility. This facility was built in 2005. It's right at the 605 and 60 freeway, so you have quick freeway access. It's completely enclosed. It's a green building. You can see the skylight in there to reduce our energy costs. And as you drive in, you can see some of the commodities that we can pull out, we bale up, and we sell. And And so the food waste would come in. So in addition to recycling other types of things, the food waste would come in, and we have an area designated for our food waste recycling program. Here's our food. This is the system that we use to convert the source separated food waste into a slurry. Right now, the Pointed Hills Material Recovery Facility is processing about 30 tons per day of source separated food waste. The facility, the infrastructure here can handle up to 165 tons per day of food waste, source separated food waste. And we're going to step you through a little video. It shows you how this is what we call our DOTA system. Here's the hopper, and here are two bioseparators that are going to create a smoothie type mixture. We're going to store it in these food waste slurry tanks. And if we need water to create the right consistency for our smoothie, we can get it from here. So let's go to the videotape.
And you know what? We have one question from Bob.
Okay.
Actually, the video hasn't played.
Yeah, I paused the video. I'll take the question.
Bob, did you want to ask your question? Okay, it seems like he's muted.
Hang on. Hey, I just can't. It's frozen on my screen. I'm only seeing the truck that came in the door.
Okay, so you just, all right, let's see. You don't see the video moving?
No. Can you stop sharing and share again?
Yeah, let's stop sharing. All right, and let's share again. All right.
And then just unfortunately, because we optimize for video, sometimes you will see a gray little box at the top, but that'll happen because we're optimizing for video.
I want to back up. So he saw, let's go.
Yeah, we saw that. You
saw all of that. All right, so, all right. And then here's the DOTA system. We have a hopper right here. Thank you, Bob. Where the food waste gets put in. We have two bioseparators, which are like motorized garlic presses that squeeze the food waste through openings that get progressively smaller from this bioseparator to the next. And it creates the slurry that we store in these 3 tanks. And if we need water to create the proper consistency, we have a water tank here. So let's go to the videotape. And I'll take questions as the videotape runs.
Can you tell, is slurry like slush?
We'll get a good shot. I mean, it's like one of those breakfast fruit smoothies, you know, and Will could probably tell you what the consistency is, but we're looking for certain consistency. Most of the time, the food waste that comes in, there's enough moisture content in it that as it goes into this bioseparator, it's squeezed through little openings that on one end, it keeps it like almost like a garlic press, where in a garlic press, the garlic will come out the openings and the cover of the garlic will stay inside. So here you see the inorganic material, the plastics and so on that we don't want.
So the video is still frozen for me, Basil. Maybe it is for the rest of the audience. But yeah, the texture that we're looking for is anywhere from about 13 to 15% solids. The rest is liquid. And that's really primarily so that we're able to pump and move the material out from tank to tank. Like Basil was mentioning, once we get this video up and running, the DOTA machine is a 2-stage bioseparator. The first stage, we're able to squeeze the organic fraction out of basically like a sieve or a garlic press, like he was mentioning, 13 millimeters in size. So basically the larger inerts are removed in that first phase. So you can kind of see the rejects in this video. The first load's going into the hopper. The augers move the material back and forth, and that helps break up some of the organic fraction from the bag. So you can see that the material that comes to our MRF, a lot of there's still quite a bit of bags and let's say contaminants or cardboard that needs to be removed. And this hopper kind of moves the material back and forth and helps break up some of those bags to release some of the organic fraction.
Will, can you see the video moving?
Yeah, it's moving now.
I took off optimize. I think the optimize feature doesn't help. So
this is our inaugural load at the dome machine, you can kind of see the rejects being discarded on the top of your screen. There's a motor on the top of, let's see, it's going a little fast, but you can see the rejects on the top left of your screen. So primarily plastic film is removed. Again, that's pushed out of a screen size that's 13 millimeters in size. And that's what we call the primary separator. So those are the larger portions. The secondary bioseparator is a refinement of the first stage. So the screen size is stepped down to about 8 millimeters in size. So you can see the material that's pushed out is a lot finer, it's a lot wetter. A lot of times we take the rejects from the second bin and we rerun it into the system, and that basically gets processed even more. So more of the material gets processed into the slurry that you see there.
Yeah, and it gets you a feel for what the slurry looks like.
So it
And-
gets dropped down into the hopper, we dilute it with reclaimed water, and then that material gets pumped into the storage tanks directly adjacent to this machine.
Okay.
And does it have to be a specific type of food waste? Like, can you do meats and bones, or it's just compostable greens?
It's any organic fraction. So we've taken meats, we've taken bones, we've taken vegetables. All of that stuff can be processed through the machine.
And here are the storage tanks again, and here's the water tank. And then once the slurry is created, and don't go away, Will, you're the expert on this. The slurry is then pumped into a tanker truck, and you can see one of our drivers loading up his tanker truck. Will, do you want to say anything about what the driver has in his hand, that sample?
Sure. So before any load arrives at our next phase, which we'll get into in the next slides, we want to make sure that all the material that's being loaded into the tankers, the slurry, so to speak, meets pH and electrical conductivity specifications. And that's in an effort to really prevent any contamination or real large upsets to the wastewater treatment plant, because the last thing you want to do is take an entire truckload of highly acidic material or anything like that that may end up upsetting the biological process at our wastewater treatment plant.
So every load, every time they take a sample so we can go back and look at it. Okay. All right, and so that truck then makes its way to our joint water pollution control plant in Carson, our largest treatment plant. And when Will and the rest of the folks in our solid waste and our wastewater group recently completed a receiving station. So you see 3 or 4 receiving stations. 2 are online that we can, the food waste slurry is offloaded into these tanks. And then from there, the food waste is fed into this, one of our digesters there. And we'll go to the next shot. So this is the next step in the process where the food waste goes into the digesters and we create biogas. So here's an aerial shot of some of our digesters at the joint plant in Carson. These are set up just like our stomach. It's an anaerobic or oxygen-free environment. Microorganisms that thrive in that environment take that organic material and they generate biogas, which is mainly methane and CO2. And the same methane you might see in a landfill, but the beauty of this is completely sealed, completely closed. And so what we do here is we mix the food waste slurry and the wastewater solids. So it's still primarily a wastewater treatment plant. So the solids that would go into the digester are mixed with the food waste, and it bumps up the biogas production. We have about 24 digesters. It's set at about 20, they're set up at about 96 degrees Fahrenheit, and the materials in the digester sit there about 15 or 16 days. Here's what the inside of a digester looks like. And to get you an idea of how enormous they are, here's a 6-foot board right here. So these digesters are about 50 feet in height. You have about 10, 20 feet above ground, and then 30 feet or so below ground. And so that biogas that's been created, we then take it to jet type engines, and we generate power at our power plant at our joint water pollution control plant. Our joint plant is basically energy self-sufficient. That gas goes into the power plant. The turbine generates electricity. The steam that comes off, that generates even more power. And it goes into what we call our total energy facility, which is a 20 megawatt power plant. And that's enough power to run the joint plant in Carson. So it basically is energy self-sufficient. And the reason it's not completely energy self-sufficient is from time to time we have to take it down for maintenance. So as we get more and more food waste, we're generating surplus biogas. And so what our solid waste energy crew has done is we're gonna clean up this surplus biogas and use it as vehicle fuel. And this latest component of our food waste recycling program came online in November of last year. So we've been doing food waste recycling for at least 6 years, but this is the latest addition to how we're doing it. So I want to show you an aerial footage. So you see the edge of a digester. They recently built an underground pipeline to take the biogas over to, we have a compressed natural gas fueling station at the corner of Sepulveda and Figueroa that we've partnered with Clean Energy with over the years. And that gas station, that compressed CNG station, is typically fueled with landfill or natural gas in the pipeline, where we're going to try to wean that fueling station off that and use the biogas from food waste. So the biogas line comes right here. Here's a biogas conditioning system. What it's going to do is take the gas from about 60% methane to over 90% methane to make it renewable fuel. Once it's been refined, it gets stored in these tankers, and then we dispense it at this fueling station. Here's the biogas conditioning system that was recently brought online. And you see basically what it does. It takes the biogas from 60%, 62% methane to over 90% methane.
Hey, Basil,
Yes, go ahead.
there's a couple of questions that I don't know if you want to take the time to answer.
Oh, go ahead, Will. Turn on your
So
video.
I can read some of the question Q&A that's posting up in the chat function. So I'll kind of just go through some of these. Kimberly asked, how does the facility smell? If you're referring to the MRF, I mean, the stuff that comes into our MRF is just like any other regular trash. Our entire MRF is completely sealed from the front end to the back end. There's odor control system to make sure that no odors leave the facility. Once it gets turned into a slurry, pretty much everything is odor-free, or all the odors are controlled. So basically, once it gets into a tank, it gets transferred into the tanker trucks, and once it reaches our slurry receiving facilities, all of those tanks are hooked up to an active odor control system as well. So essentially, once it gets turned into a slurry, there really should be zero odors emanating from that material. And that's one of the reasons why CalRecycle is really wanting us to anaerobically digest this material, because once it gets slurified and put into the anaerobic digesters, all the odors and the gas that's produced from the decomposition is trapped and utilized to produce energy or renewable natural gas. Another question is, how do you make sure no bits of plastic end up in the finished product? We have specifications that require our customers who want to bring us their processed slurry that they meet our specification. So the specification for plastic film, for example, is going to be less than 0.5%. So in order for any customer to bring their material to us, again, we have to make sure that you guys meet our specifications, and we can get into that a little bit later on.
Okay, don't go away. Okay, what else you got?
Another question was, what would be the total solids as a slurry, and what would the total solids be fed to the digester? So in our slurry, the slurry specification, again, it's 13 to about 15% solids. So that's our solids content for the slurry. For our digester loading, we load it, each digester can handle up to 62 tons of diverted food waste per day. If that gets converted into slurry, it's 83 tons per day. And if you compare that to the entire loading of a digester, that accounts for about 10% on a liquids basis for the total digester loading, or about 30% on a solids basis for the anaerobic digester load.
Okay, I think we'll take this one raised hand. I know, Basil, your presentation's almost done, right?
Yeah, it's fine. This is exactly what we want. We want interaction.
Right, perfect. Actually, they lowered their hand.
Now I'm disappointed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, don't
The
go away,
hand was
Will.
lowered. Did you? Oh, okay, okay. Hand is raised again.
Are there any
Okay,
more questions?
Yeah, there's a couple.
Karen.
Are there any
Sorry.
bacteria present in the slurry, or do you have to buy and add bacteria? Well, we add the slurry directly into the anaerobic digesters. Those digesters already have their own bacteria. That's normal to the wastewater treatment process. Again, we're just adding, and we use the term co-digestion. So we're able to slip in just a little bit of food waste into the existing operation. And again, as long as it meets our specification, because we want to make sure that we don't upset the biological process that's already occurring. For what else is in the gas when it's 60% methane? Well, it's about 60 to 63% methane in the digester gas. The rest is carbon dioxide, essentially. So that's the main purpose of our biogas conditioning system, is to basically separate the methane from all the inert gases. So you have a little bit of trace, gases, hydrogen sulfides, but primarily it's CO2 that we remove from the gas.
All right. Do you want me to? I'm almost done, and then we'll take. I think there's about 10 more questions.
Sure.
And don't go away. We'll leave your camera on. You're the real star of the show. And so this gas goes to our existing fueling station that you see here. Since November, we've been sending some of our biogas there. And I'm almost done. And the last step is what comes out of the digester, the material that's left over, after the microorganisms have had their buffet. So that digested solid is dewatered before we take it offline. We put it through what we call a centrifuge that takes it from 3% or 3% solids to about 30% solids. So we dewater it so we don't have, and this is what it looks like after it's dewatered. We call it biosolids cake because it looks like crumbled chocolate cake to us. And this is what's being produced at the joint plant in Carson. And even this, we're looking to recycle it, and we are recycling it. That stuff gets trucked off site. We have about 50 trucks a day that come to our joint plant. And then most of it, we have about 5 or 6 sites that we take our biosolids to. But most of it, what we do is we mix it with agricultural waste and we create a soil amendment that we either sell or we use to augment farming in various areas. So we're currently at the joint plant. So there's 2 entry points into this food waste recycling system. You could have source separated food waste at the MRF, Point of Hills Material Recovery Facility. We can take up to 165 tons per day of food waste, or we can take slurry right into the joint plant. And right now we have about 8 haulers that are bringing food waste slurry to the joint plant for a total of about 300 tons per day of food waste slurry. And the maximum capacity we have at the joint plant to take food waste slurry is about 600 tons. So we're about at 50% capacity in terms of taking food waste slurry. That food waste slurry now is producing the equivalent of about 2,000 gallons of gasoline in terms of energy. When we get to 600 tons, when we max out the system, we should be looking at the equivalent of about 5,700 gallons per day of gasoline. So,
Hey, Basil.
okay, Genesis, go for it.
I'm sorry. One thing, can you try turning off your video and turning it on again? I'm sorry, I think you're frozen. Okay. You're good now. Sorry, you keep freezing your screen.
Oh wow, that's interesting.
Sorry, go on.
Did you see it? Did you see any of the stuff before?
Yeah, the slides. It was just your image, your video.
Okay.
Right,
My video is not that important. All right. So what we're going to continue to produce electricity that powers our treatment plant. Will and the folks in solid waste, all the and in wastewater section, we're going to continue to produce vehicle fuel. And as we get more and more biogas, maybe down the road we'll look to inject it into the natural gas pipelines. So that's all we got in terms of our food waste tour. Let's go to the questions.
All right, cool. Thank you. Let me stop your sharing.
I wanted to keep up just to let, if they have, all right, we'll bring it back. Okay.
Oh, I will put it in the chat.
Okay.
I'll put it in the chat. And so
So
we
if you're
have
interested, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Marilyn, would you like to ask your question? Marilyn? Okay. Oh,
Can you
yeah,
hear me?
we can hear you.
How many plants do you have besides Carson and La Puenta? And then the other question is, are you recording this video so that others can see it who can't see it now?
I will answer the second question. Yes, I am recording it and we will be uploading it on YouTube. So if there's anything that you want to refer to or go back to, I put the YouTube link on the chat. I'll put it in again. It might have gotten lost with the chats. So I'll put our YouTube link so that you can see the video. It'll be up by tomorrow.
And I'll answer the first question. So the material recovery facility at 605 and 60 at our Point of Hills landfill, that can handle source separated food waste. That's about it can take up to 165 tons per day. So that's where the source separated food waste. And then the slurry, we handle it at our facility in Carson, the joint plant. And that can take up to 600 tons per day of food waste slurry. So 2 entry point, you can just bring the tomatoes before they've been turned into a slurry, or you can bring the slurry tomato to the joint plant where we can take it directly into our treatment plant. Will, is there anything you want to add to that?
Just a little bit is, typically our customers that currently bring slurry to our wastewater treatment plant, you guys would obviously have to have your own pre-processing facility. So that makes it a little bit more tougher for, residents to bring in their stuff. But yeah, like Basil mentioned, our material recovery facility is able to accept source separated food waste. So whatever types of organic waste that you have. There's one question that was asking about, let me see. It might have already got answered.
Okay. Any other questions, Genesis?
Yeah, so do microplastics make their way into the slurry? And if so, is it removed in the final remaining solids after the biodigesters?
You want to take that?
I know that our research group is really diving into that, and there's a lot of, momentum in that space. I'm not sure if there are. I don't know if we even test for microplastics in our slurry.
Yeah. All right. So the next question: can digesters at the joint plant accept horse manure?
Yeah, I saw that question. That's a really good question. I mean, it's organic fraction, so I don't think we've ever received it directly. But again, if it meets our specifications, then I don't see why not. But I can't give a definitive answer because we've never been asked that before.
Okay.
All right. So the next question: what do you do if the pH of the slurry is not within range at the Point of Hill storage tanks?
I was about to type an answer. So at our receiving station and at our MRF DOTA system, we have the ability to recirculate between tanks, and that gives us the flexibility to basically dilute or mix around loads. So for example, if there was a load that was exceptionally low in pH or high, but it still met specification, obviously. If it didn't meet spec, then we would just turn them away. But if it was, a little bit on the low end versus high, we have the ability to recirculate, and that gives us the ability to kind of levelize and kind of mix things around so it's a little bit more uniform by the time it gets sent over to the joint plant. And that's the same thing over at our slurry receiving facilities as well. The 4 tanks that you saw over there, there are 2 tanks that feed 1 digester. So typically 1 truck comes in, he's offloading into 1 tank. Then we have the ability to levelize the tanks between each other and also recirculate the material as we start distributing and pulse feeding the digesters throughout the day.
All right, cool. Next question. How do I know that this is saving me money at home?
I guess the first thing, I don't have a definitive answer to that. I mean, what we're trying to do is put together a program that will help our member cities. We know California law is, by January of next year, we have to have in place programs that divert this organic waste. And because we already have the existing infrastructure, we know that ours is the most cost-effective way of handling it right now in LA County. And like I was having a conversation with Will, right now we could there's 4,000 tons of food waste per day in LA County. our system with the joint plant can handle about 10% of that. So we know at each passing month, each passing year, it's as if our capacity gets used up, the next source is probably it will be more expensive than ours. It's something we have to do. California wants to divert this organic material from landfill. Until I hear otherwise, I think that's the path they're on, right?
Yeah. So, so the next question, are there any plans to decentralize locations where the public can drop off food waste?
I don't have an answer for that. I think our thing is we have the existing infrastructure right now at the joint plant in Carson in terms of the slurries. So if there's any expansion, there has to be an analysis of the existing infrastructure we have now. So the two locations, I think if we bump out our system, the next logical location would be look at the material recovery facility at the 605 and the 60 to see if we can add to it. And at the joint plant, is there more we can do to take more slurry? I think that would be the next logical step because we're trying to avoid spending money on capital infrastructure because at the end of the day, that's real dollars. Will, is there anything you would add or is my answer?
No, you pretty much covered that. I mean, right now we have existing infrastructure, like Basil mentioned, at our MRF. We're only processing about 30 tons per day. We have the ability to take up to 165. At our joint plant, we're about half of the capacity. So again, it really depends on the market. If we have and we see a market shift where there's a lot of people kind of knocking on our door saying, hey, we really need somewhere for this organics, for these organics to go. And once we see the need, then we'll start investing more into adding infrastructure. But again, this infrastructure, I think that was one of the questions too. Is if it's cost neutral or not. It does quite a bit. It does cost quite a bit of money to install everything. The districts have already spent multi-millions of dollars installing the biogas conditioning system, the pipelines, the DOTA machine, and basically, we can only set our rates competitively as well. The solid waste market is all driven, and we're in an open market compared to the other facilities as well. For our slurry, for the revenue that we receive from this program, it's being directly, it's going right back into the program. So, once, I don't know if Basil, if you talked about our other biogas projects or not, but basically the revenue that we receive from the biogas conditioning system is going to go right back into reinvestment for another phase 2 project if we end up getting enough material.
Yeah, and I guess to put it in context, for the slurry delivered to the joint plant, what's the typical cost per ton?
Well, we charge $27 per slurry ton that comes in. And that's pretty much a very cost competitive price compared to the other facilities. And it's not like the districts are making a lot of money off of this.
Can I paraphrase it? It's the lowest around. Can I say that?
Yeah. And it's, honestly, if you think about all the stuff that goes behind that, all the work that goes behind once that material is dropped off, from going through the wastewater treatment plants process, our slurry receiving facilities, the biosolids handling and disposal. There's a lot of work that goes on behind once that material is in our possession.
All right. Are you guys ready for the next question? It's considering the cost that it takes to run the plant, including the energy cost, is the plant overall cost neutral, or does it cost us money, or does it make us money?
The food waste program.
Yes.
Well, do you want me to take a stab at it? I think the food waste program, first thing it's there, the first reason it's there is that we're trying to help our member cities comply with the state law. But being cost effective or frugal, I think that as we get more, the food waste program itself should break even or at least generate revenue, as Will said, to help bring our costs down for the people we serve.
Right. No, that's accurate. I would say if we had to coin a term, it would be cost neutral. Again, we have to cover our operational expenses. We also have to receive a return on our investment. And again, there's quite a bit of investment that we've already invested in all of our existing projects already. So again, if we see the market shift and there's a lot more demand, then yes, we will react accordingly and potentially even expand out and have more receiving facilities or more pre-processing facilities. But until the market gets there, you know, it's hard for us to invest millions of dollars for material that's not there yet.
Okay. So the next question is, are the biosolids soil enriched or good for use once centrifuged?
The biosolids, we use it, we have a number of facilities where we turn it into soil amendment, and we either sell it or local farmers use it to enrich their soil. And yeah, so we have a number of facilities that the biosolids are utilized at.
Okay,
Did I
great.
answer
So
the question?
next question is, and if it didn't, please feel free to add a follow-up. Is there an optimal feed for the digesters? Is there a balance of proteins, carbohydrates, lipids?
I don't have the breakdown for those specific parameters, but you know, we do have our specification, and there is, you know, the digesters have a sweet spot for COD or BOD loading. The existing material that we receive from our customers, again, it really depends on their feedstock, and it ranges anywhere from stuff that's lower in energy content, higher in proteins, or lower in proteins, all the way to higher strength, you know, fog material, where there's a lot more, basically what we call rocket fuel for the digester. So it really varies, and we don't have a specific target for those. As long as, again, it meets our specifications, the digesters can handle it. And that's another reason why we set the volumes that we have, because, you know, it's able to take those swings within those specifications. So if we get something on the high end versus low end, the fact that it's only co-digesting on a small ratio basis, we're not concerned with any it prevents us and protects us from any major upsets.
Okay, cool. Next question. What's the ratio of compostable paper products and organic loads, and is it problematic for the process? I love this. I'm stunning you guys.
No, I mean,
I'm kidding.
Will is the one that does the deep dive. I think what I've learned is that if the load comes in for every 100, I don't know, tons, if at least 95% is organic material, we can handle it. In terms of what that rest is, I don't know. And in terms of the slurry, you're looking at like a 0.5% or 1% or less in terms of impurities in the slurry. I don't know. I mean, that's all I have. I don't have any more specific information. So for every 100 ton, we're looking for at least 90 tons of organic material in it that comes into the MRF. And in terms of the slurry, we're looking at 1% or less of contamination.
Okay.
You got any more,
So,
Will?
Nope.
All right. So next question, what happens to the food waste that individual homeowners put in their weekly trash collection? Does that go to the landfill?
Yeah, I mean, that food waste is going into the landfill. If it goes into the black bin and it comes into our material recovery facility, it gets loaded into a transfer truck and it gets landfill. Yes.
Okay,
And I think
perfect.
that's a bridge that's going to have to be crossed in terms of how do we collect that? We're not in the business of collecting solid waste. We're in the business of helping manage. But I think different jurisdictions are going to have to figure out how to meet the state requirements for organics diversion. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that was that leads to some of the other questions where is there a program for residents to take their own food waste to the facility, or is it limited to just grocery stores and restaurants for now? So
Well, yeah, I mean, right now, I think we work with the haulers that either come to the Point of Hills MRF or that come to the the joint plant. I'm not aware of any programs with for residents.
Yeah, on the residential side, the only thing I can think of right now is a company out by the Riverside County CR&R. They're actually telling their customers, residents, to put all their organic fraction and organic waste directly into their green bin, because their facility is able to take green waste with a little bit of organic waste in their waste stream, and they take that material and put it into their dry digesters, which is a completely different operation than what we're doing. But there are programs. My personal trash service at home, which is one of the big ones, like there is no differentiation. We just put everything, it's either black, blue, or green. And, you know, I think with the regulations, it's the lowest hanging fruit right now, the path of least resistance. So if you have source separated food waste, it's relatively clean. There's not as many plastics, there's not as many forks and wrappers compared to post-consumer. And so they're trying to target all that fraction first. And you can imagine that if we start having to process post-consumer waste, the contamination rate, you know, jumps from 10% to I don't know what, but it's much, much higher. And to be able to extract that organic fraction out from that waste stream is a lot more challenging. The equipment and technology is trying to catch up, but again, it's a lot of work to separate. Imagine like an apple core from a waste bin that's a couple cubic yards in volume. It's actually very difficult to do that. So I don't think we're there yet, but unless, you know, Tower Cycle has even more stricter regulations or rules or targets, that may be the future.
Okay, we have Eric Newton who has his hand up. Eric, did you want to mute yourself to ask your question?
Okay, sure. I know the pilot program for residential organic waste collection concluded last year. Is there plans to roll it out this year, or and then this second question: can residents, even though it's not officially rolled out yet, start putting, you know, more than just fruits and vegetable scraps in the green bin?
I'm not aware of the pilot program. That must be a Cal Recycle program, or I'm not aware.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was an LA sanitation program.
LA City.
Oh,
Yeah.
LA City.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And I live in this LA City, and I haven't been part of that pilot program. So that's kind of interesting. So they must targeted specific neighborhoods, I guess.
Yeah, they did it for a year. The last collection was in May of last year, so it was during the pandemic. So I think that's why the rollout has been delayed. But several people have asked me, can residents, you know, put food waste in the green bin? And I know you've answered it, but I was wondering if, you know, that's something we can start encouraging people from your point of view to do.
Yeah, that's really ultimately going to be dictated by what the haulers and what their facilities are going to be able to handle.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And I guess the one thing, we're a special agency, so we're not LA County. We're a special district, like a school district, and we were created to handle wastewater. And later on, our the law that created our agency was amended to allow us to help in terms of solid waste management.
Okay.
So that's how we're set up. People, it's a natural, you know, the name Los Angeles County. We're created to serve Los Angeles County, but we aren't Los Angeles County. The mayors of your cities sit on our board of directors, and they direct our activities. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Great, thanks. So our next question is, does this plant in Carson use reclaimed water from that facility, from West Basin's facility?
The Carson plant uses some of the reclaim, you know, generates cleaned water. You know, it takes sewage, it cleans it up. Most of that water is discharged to the ocean, but it does use a bit of that water for activities on the treatment plant. I don't know the specifics right now, but we do use some of that water, and we're working with Metropolitan Water District on a project that's in the pilot phase, where we can take the water that's typically too salty for reuse, see if we can cost effectively clean that up. And if that project makes positive progress, maybe down the road, all that water will be fully recycled, purified, and then put back into our water supply in the region. So we use a small bit of the water that comes in around the plant. I'm not sure for the specific uses, but most of it right now, because it's too salty for reuse, because of the high concentration of industry, we discharge this clean water out to the ocean. But we have a pilot plant at the Joint Plant Carson where we're working with the Metropolitan Water District to see if we can cost effectively clean that up. And if we get approvals, do the environmental document, Metropolitan Board gives everyone the green light. Maybe 10, 12, 15 years down the road, that whole thing could be cleaned up even further and be recycled.
So let me answer a couple questions in the Q&A box. Samantha asked, are the digesters currently operating at full capacity? Right now, no, we're only taking a couple of loads. Again, we just recently constructed the slurry receiving facility. So just like your stomach, you don't want to, all of a sudden shock the system. So we're taking a couple loads at a time. We'll slowly ramp that up. And so we're definitely not at full capacity. We still have a lot of room to go. Kimberly asked, where do you get the food waste from currently? Right now at the joint plan, we have about 8 external customers right now, and they come from food processors, they come from haulers. And yeah, their feedstock comes from supermarkets and restaurants as well, or what's the word I'm looking for? Or agricultural locations. So it really ranges. But right now we have about 8 different customers, and that covers pretty much a lot of different markets. Can we either get a private Zoom for the Girl Scouts in the area, or even a recording would be amazing. So I think Genesis is going to make this recording available. You can also check out our YouTube site, but we're also always available for personal or private tours. We're doing, this one was widely advertised, but yeah, if you guys are interested in a group setting, a more kind of personal tour, we can do that. There was one question about post-pandemic, do you guys offer in-person tours? Yeah, we were doing that even before the pandemic started. So once everything is hopefully back to normal soon, yeah, feel free to reach out to us where you guys can kind of see, these facilities up close and personal. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I mean, because of the pandemic, we had to figure out how to kind of improvise. Like Will said, we would do, for school kids, we typically would give 130 tours a year of our different solid waste and wastewater facilities. But we've morphed into these virtual presentations that you can either see on our YouTube channel, and we're still doing it if there's a particular school that wants a tour of a wastewater treatment plant or a solid waste facility, we can do a virtual tour for those school kids and the public. So yeah, we got to keep doing what we're doing. We can't let a virus stop us, So. Any other questions?
Next question, how has COVID impacted your intake of food waste, with restaurants being confined to takeout and most recently, once again, being able to have outdoor dining? And what do you foresee in the near future?
That's a definite Will question.
Yeah, before the pandemic, we had a pretty slow and steady increase. Back in 2014, when we started this demonstration project, we started with pretty much 1 truck at a couple tons per day, and we almost hit about 350 tons per day coming to our joint plant with a food waste slurry. Obviously, once the pandemic hit in about March of last year, restaurants closing, the rest of the economy shutting down, that tonnage dropped significantly by about 30 to 40%. So we definitely saw significant impacts because of the pandemic and the closures. It's slowly been creeping back up a little bit. So we're still teetering right around 300 or a little bit less than 300. But we're hoping that once the economy opens back up, restaurants start opening back up, reaching back to normal levels, that we're going to see and continue that rise, hopefully up to 300 to 400 tons per day at the facility.
Yeah, and one of the exhibits we had and it showed you the growth in terms of food waste. It was do you want me to share that, or I think you answered the question well enough.
Yeah, it's a pretty consistent rise, but yeah, there was a big dip because of the pandemic and it's starting to creep back up again. So we're hoping that we see that come back up. And we're also, you know, kind of ready and expecting that to go back up because of the regulations and how they're going to come into effect in 2022. Since more gas will be conveyed to the BCS and CNG station, will this reduce flaring occurrences at the joint plant? That's a pretty technical question, but yeah, so right now, all of the gas, before the BCS was built, all the gas was used on site. There'd be occasions when there'd be some flaring. But again, once we have the BCS up and running at full capacity, our hope is to not have to flare any gas. And that's obviously being used at Total Energy Facility to create all the power that they need to use. And also the utilization or the transformation from that digester gas over to vehicle fuel.
Next question.
All right. So how many people are employed in this project?
So our program was really, you know, we added to our existing facilities already. So at the MRF, we didn't have to have an operator once the DOTA is being used to actually operate that. There's a front loader that moves the material in there and an operator to make sure that the system is running. On the joint plant side, again, that's also adding to existing facilities. I think we might have had to add maybe one or half a technically position so that when trucks do come in, again, an operator needs to make sure that the pipes and the hoses are hooked up properly and to make sure that the pumps are run. But besides that, the system really is able to do everything by itself. It's just to make sure that everything is hooked up correctly in case there's any spills, which there normally aren't. But in case there are any spills, you know, we react accordingly. No odors are emanating from the site, and no slurry leaves the site either.
All right, so the next question, is this presentation available in PDF format? Yes, it is. We can put it up. If I'll put our email down on the chat, if you want to send us an email, we can provide the PDF for you.
The next question, was there an increase in digester gas production after adding food waste when compared to baseline levels? Yes, so during our demonstration project, when we were loading each digester, well, the one digester to its capacity of about 62 tons per day of diverted food waste, we nearly doubled the gas production. But as we are finding out, it really, really depends on the material that comes in. Like I mentioned earlier, if there's a load that comes in that's, you know, a lot more in, I guess, fats, oils, and greases, or let's say high strength waste like soda manufacturing byproducts, then that stuff creates a lot more gas or has a lot of biomethane gas potential. Versus, let's say you have a load that comes in and it's high in fiber and it's just basically celery stalks, for example. That stuff's not going to produce as much gas. So it really depends on the feedstock that's coming in. But like I mentioned before, if we were to kind of mix all that stuff together into homogeneous slurry, we're hoping that once we load each digester up to its capacity, we can nearly double the digester gas production of each digester.
Any other questions?
Next question, what are the markets doing to lower the use of plastics and boxes?
I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, I don't know.
So how are we using the fuel from this plant?
We're using the fuel from this plant. The primary way is the Total Energy Facility at the joint plant. Most of the fuel or energy goes there, and then the extra is going to either the compressed natural gas station at the corner of Sepulveda and Figueroa, and any beyond that would be flared.
There's another question from Angela. My son, who is 12, is very interested in the environment, and we recently started a 65-gallon compost bin in our backyard. Are there classes he can learn about what you do at this age, or what he should major in college? If he wants to find out more about what we do, I mean, we have a lot of school programs and outreach programs that Basil and Genesis lead. If he's interested in specifically, what he should major in college, the sanitation districts employs a wide range of specialties, including scientists, engineers. Me personally, I was an environmental engineer, mechanical and undergrad. And there's, the great thing about the districts is there's a lot of different positions. So as you see a project or a department that does work that's particularly interesting, there's the ability to kind of, dabble in that and learn more about that. But if he's interested, he can always reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to kind of talk to him about that.
And we even hire economists like Genesis, so yeah, there's a lot of different roles you can play to help protect the environment.
All right, so next question. Which SPAs or service areas are being serviced with this kind of pickup? I am wondering how SPA 1 can get the service for the many food pantries that have food waste.
SPA, I'm not sure what is it.
Or service
Yeah,
area?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I mean, I think go ahead, Genesis.
Oh no, sorry, I was gonna go to the next question.
No, I said part of the law, we talk about what happens when the food waste comes to us, but I think part of the state law is it's a tiered effort. If that food waste could be diverted to like food banks, that should be the first thing. It's tiered. So if we can divert that food waste, it's still good, get it to a food bank. That's, I think, what the law wants to do. And if it cannot be diverted to food waste, then it comes to us. In terms of the haulers, it's really a function of which haulers have signed up with us. I think that's the best. I think that's the best I can answer that question.
And with SBA's, Jacqueline, she clarified it's for service planning areas for LA County.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we enter into contracts or haulers, and not even we can enter into contract, or haulers can just bring their waste to our Point of Hills MRF. In addition to food waste, you can bring your blue bin, green bin stuff. We're open for business. The MRF can handle up to 4,400 tons of all kinds of waste. So we have, it's convenient, it's quick to go in and out. So it's really a function of the haulers.
And are any haulers in Lancaster or Palmdale area in a contract?
No, not that I'm aware of. I think it's just, distance is a factor. And so it would be too far for a hauler from Lancaster or Palmdale to drive down to the MRF or the joint plant in Carson.
So next question, for the jet engines used to generate power, what was the criteria to select those engines over the other options?
I don't have those. I can look into that and get you that. But the power plant's been in existence for a while.
A couple of decades, yeah.
Yeah.
And typically how they design that, they obviously have a specific output, specific model that they're looking for. The fuel or the gas turbines need to be able to utilize and burn our digester gas. So obviously there's fuel treatment that needs to occur ahead of that. But yeah, that decision was made a couple decades ago, so I'm not sure. I mean, we probably went out for a design package and we determined what, again, a lot of times the projects, especially gas combustion turbine engines or anything that has a combustion source, we are dictated and limited by what the South Coast Air Quality Management District allows us to use. So any kind of project really has to be the best available control technology at the time. So those models that we chose, I think their Mars was probably the BACT at the time.
Will would know.
Okay. All right, so the next question, is there a spoon in the digesters that mixes the slurry?
I don't remember if we had mechanical mixers or if it uses aeration. I think I'm getting confused with the digesters, but I think we utilize air. We pump air and we actually discharge the, yeah, I don't know, actually. I don't want to give the wrong information, but there's two ways of mixing it. It's either using air or the sludge itself or mechanical mixers. And I don't think that we have mechanical mixers.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, that shot was a shot inside the digester. I didn't see any mechanical mixers those poles were heating elements, but I'm not sure. We can find an answer.
Okay, we have a couple questions left. Unless anyone wants to, now's your time to add some more questions to the Q&A or the chat feature. So next question, are we expected to separate food waste at point of disposal? Will there be special containers for it? I'm assuming this is once it rolls out to residents.
Yeah, again, that's really dependent on your hauler. You know, right now, like for me, I'm not expected to do that. Everything's just going into the green bin. I'm not aware of any other programs that require you to. But if you do go to, like, let's say for a Costco, for example, they do have the bin set up where you have food scraps and you have the landfill portion versus the organic. And that's already basically the pre-separation at that point. So hopefully at the back end, they can just separate the bags and then one goes to a clean stream. But yeah, it really depends on the haulers and what they're able to do with those different streams or the same stream if they're going to process it on the back end.
Okay, and then our last question from Roxanne. You were talking about SB 1383. So the question was, did we meet the 2020 goal?
No.
Yeah, I saw that question come in and I was trying to look it up, but I don't think that we did. And there's, you know, Cal Recycle has really set really aggressive targets for us to meet. And again, it's 50% by 2020, and then, or is it
75? Yes,
75%.
50 by 2020 and 75 by.
So in order for us to do that, again, Basil mentioned the 4,000 tons per day. I mean, that's a lot. And I don't think we're there yet, nor do we have the infrastructure able to pre-process this. Again, this is one, you know, we have there's a couple in the pipeline. Our facility is able to handle 165. But again, to have enough infrastructure to be able to handle, you know, 4,000 tons per day, I don't think that we're there yet. So it'll be really interesting to see in the next couple of years to see how you know, how the jurisdictions react and how Cal Recycle is going to start enforcing these targets or these rules.
Okay, great. So it looks like those are all our questions for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time, and we will put this video up on our YouTube page, so you can check. I have the link up in the chat, so you can check our YouTube page by tomorrow, and we'll have it up. Also, I think there are like 2 other food waste presentations on there. So if you want to look to see what questions have been asked in the past, you can feel free to watch those other videos as well. And if you have any questions, you can always drop an email to me. I have my email on the chat, genesisrodriguez@lacsd.org, and we'd be happy to answer any other questions that you can think of.
And if you want to take slurry straight to the joint plant, drop an email to Will Chen, and we'll drop that in the chat. And if you want to take food waste source separated to the MRF, we can drop an email to Habib Karat. And so those are the 2 point persons for this program. Those are 2 points of entry into our food waste recycling program. And with that, enjoy your Thursday. Thank you, Will. I always learn a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coordinating. Yep.
Keeping us on track. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good one.
Okay.